Welcome to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with host Lane Nordland.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cattleman's Call podcast. Lane Nordland with you here today, and I'm excited about our conversation here today. Every year, we of course recognize the regional winners of the Environmental Stewardship Award program. And it's always great to see a new slate of families from across the nation be recognized for their work out on the landscape. And today, of course, we are going to be joined by three individuals from across the nation. Just a quick introduction of who's joining us here today. Mark Overstreet with M&D Overstreet Ranch in Kathleen, Florida. Mr. Bob McCann is joining us with McFadden Ranch in Victoria, Texas. And, well, it's a few hours away from me in Montana, but Greg Gardner with G&G Livestock and Cathy Cattle Company out of Polson, Montana, are joining us here today. Of course, they are the 2025 Environmental Stewardship Award regional winners for Regions 2, 4, and 5. And, you know, ESAP would not be possible without the support of our generous donors and sponsors of this award. We just want to give a shout out to the Natural Resources Conservation Service, Corteva Agriscience, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for their continued support of the ESAP program. But, gentlemen, welcome to the Cattleman's Call podcast. We're here today actually having our conversation in San Diego, California, where you and three other regional winners are recognized during the summer meeting of the cattle industry. And first off, Bob, welcome to the podcast. You're a name, voice, and face familiar to very many in the cattle industry, former president of the NCBA as well. What's it like coming here and maybe a little bit different capacity and being recognized for environmental stewardship here today?
It is, Lane. It's a great way to be able to come to the summer meeting again that I've been to many of in the past, but as you said, a little bit different, and it's just such a proud moment for my family and myself, and our heritage there in Texas, and be able to come here and with all these other winners and great stewards across the country and be able to share this time here.
Well, like I said, it's always exciting just to see these family operations and hear the different struggles that they've went through, but also the successes and everything they've gone through as well. So, Bob, thanks for joining us, and Greg joining us. Like I said, it's a little, I'm near Great Falls. It's a little bit of a drive for me to Polson there. Beautiful country up in your neck of the woods, but what's it be like to come down here and meet all these other regional winners that we're all in the cattle business together, but we're doing things just maybe a little bit differently?
Yeah, sure. It's a great honor to be included in this exclusive group. I'm kind of like somebody said yesterday, every one of them's a winner. So it's good to be here, and it's opened my eyes a lot to NCBA and getting to travel.
Yeah.
So It's fun to bring my wife and my daughter to the convention.
Yep. Well, thanks for joining us, and Mark from Florida is joining us here today as well. Mark, what's the experience been like so far, and the recognition that you and your family have received for your work in the cattle business?
Well, it started off with, I won the county in Florida, then I won the state, and then they said you're running for the regional, and I was like, I can't believe this. This is just great. This is beyond anything I ever dreamed, because they a group of guys or people nominated me, and of course here I am. But to be with these class of guys, these families, it's a great honor, humbling. It really is. They call me the mouth of the South, but it's actually humbled me that I'm here with such greatness. You know what I mean?
Yep.
My place in Florida, we've been there a long time. Of course, every one of these ranches, they've got fourth and fifth, sixth generations, So I can't say, I've been there longer than anybody. No. We're all very unique in what we do. And I was reading this piece of paper a while ago about the wildlife and stuff, and we're all totally different in what we have to put up with, versus, Florida versus Montana versus Texas or wherever, So it's a humbling experience for me. It really is.
Well, and again, like I said, there's always challenges, but also opportunities on all of our operations across the countryside, and being able to highlight the work that producers put in. And sometimes it's hard to talk about your own operation, and it's hard to share all of the frustration that maybe has gone into making improvements, or the time it takes to go into the NRCS office or other collaborators out there. It takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight. And that's one thing I just hope that our listeners of the podcast can gain is never give up, and it's okay to try things and try to be successful while doing it and try to be profitable as well. But Mark, as you mentioned too, wildlife, that's where we kind of want to take this conversation to. Wildlife, maybe species and invasive species, native species. We all have different challenges, and of course, I'm familiar with the challenges that Greg faces in Montana, or the opportunities, however we want to present that too. And Greg, I'll start with you first. Over there in western Montana, I always, everyone always pictures Montana as being mountains and everything, and I'm like, well, that's only about a quarter of the state. Out in God's country on the flatlands, that's where everything is. But all kidding aside. Let's just give a quick preview of your family operation over there, and what it's been like. Some of the challenges that your ranch and the lands that you graze on you've faced over the years, and in terms of maybe invasive species, whether that's grasses, weeds, and then we can talk wildlife later.
Okay, yeah, we bought the ranch in 1990. Lynn and I did, with help of her parents, John and Betty Gordon, from Cascade, Montana. And Brittany and her husband came onto the ranch in 2010. So we're all working as one. We're two entities, but Lynn and I leased the neighbor's ranch and then leased our ranch to the kids. And we're cow-calf.
What is that dynamic like, having, two different businesses and two, you're supporting two families there? What has that been like?
Well, until we leased the neighbor's ranch, it would have been difficult. But Brittany's husband is a crop duster also. So he's got that side income, so he's diversified. And so we all work it as a family, and we have one or two hired men that help us and their families.
So what are your pastures? What are your forages mainly over there in that part of Montana? What are some of the grazing challenges you have depending on the year, and what's moisture been like for you over this year?
The moisture the last 5 years we're in a drought. So when we normally want to do a rest rotation on our grazing, and like this year, I think it's just going to be a deferred grazing. And for species, rough fescue, Idaho fescue, blue bunch wheatgrass, slender wheatgrass, intermediate wheatgrass, and we try to not feed our cattle in the winter until up to calving. We feed them cake or a protein pellet, and sometimes that does not work because of snow.
Yeah.
But other than that, as far as invasive species, we have a lot of weeds in western Montana. Of course, knapweed, Dalmatian toadflax, leafy spurge, sulfur cinquefoil, just about everything you can talk about. And now we're getting rush skeleton weed, which is a really bad one. And then as grass species, ventonata is coming in, and cheatgrass is showing up a lot worse because of the drought.
Yep.
So we're trying Rejuvra, a product, on that.
It works.
Does it?
It works.
We want to try that on the cheatgrass and the ventonata.
Yep.
And otherwise it's Tordon and 2,4-D and on the other plants.
We've utilized Rejuvra out on my operation too, it was so interesting. I was out there driving the pastures, and you can see where I didn't get it hit last year. And there's just one, a long streak of cheatgrass out there in our pastures too. It's been pretty effective.
Well, that's encouraging.
But that cheatgrass is, and I don't know if you all experience cheatgrass, it is, you can graze it when it's green, and then it's just nasty after that. And that vent knot is even worse. That it looks like it, but
and they won't eat vent knot,
No.
will they? Because it's so much silicone in
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what's it been like though, leasing another ranch that maybe hasn't been? What was that like? Were they managing their grasslands?
Oh yeah, they're excellent operators,
Yeah.
and we're honored to be able to lease it. It's a big ranch, so there's 100 pastures in it, and so that means 100 water tanks, and and that's a lot of pipelines.
Yeah.
Because it's one side of the ranch is fed by 3 wells, and it goes up into high country. So we've been plowing in with a plow that you drag the pipelines in, and I had my own built, so I can do the work myself. And last year we did about 3 miles for that ranch, and we did 5 for ours. And over the years, we've probably done 10 miles total.
So, is there some collaboration with Equip or with some other
On-
entities to
on
help
our
with the pipe?
deeded on our deeded ranch, yes.
Okay.
On the leased ranch, they opted not to do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than hauling water up in the mountains.
Oh, you
too.
bet. Yeah, you bet.
Well, I want to talk about some of your wildlife species too, but I'll circle back to you there, Bob. Let's talk about the operation there in Texas too. How long has your family been there? What's the grazing landscape look like, and what are some of the challenges and successes you've had here and working to improve that grazing land as well?
Sure. Well, my great-great-grandfather put the ranch property together in 1877, and we've been there ever since. We do have a lease ranch as well, a little bit further south of there in what they call the South Texas brush country area. And my grandfather leased that ranch in 1932. And so it's a long-term relationship with those landlords down there. But and between the 2 ranches there, and we actually operate 3 ranches, the home ranch there in Victoria County is native coastal prairie, and it was a pristine prairie, for many, many years. And of course now we're kind of fighting the brush invasion and invasive species out there, and it's a real challenge. It's a constant battle, and we expend quite a bit of resources every year in trying to kind of keep the brush back to a small roar. But the prairie is a kind of a blue stem prairie, and little blue stem is our staple grass there, and we've got a multitude of native grasses. Big blue stem has come in, and since we've been doing our rotation, we started our first rotation there in 1992, and so it's really flourished. The better species, yellow Indian grass, big blue stem, switchgrass, and little blue stem are we have lots of communities of it across the prairie, and then lots of other species that are. You could probably say that the diversity out there kind of lends itself to the wildlife production as well as the cattle production, and it's strictly a benefit that we've seen from our rest rotation programs. So.
And Mark, for yourself too there in Florida, what's the landscape look like? What's the grazing like down there too? What's the grass makeup? And what are some invasive issues you have down there too?
We have, what's amazing to me, I'm hearing all these invasive plants that every one of these guys are talking about, and I don't quite understand what. There's things out there at my place, and of course their places too, that weren't there when we were kids. But now we're dealing with where's all this stuff coming from? Well, I can tell you part of our problem is we have a thing called a Kogan grass. It was brought in from the phosphate mines to put on their banks so the erosion. But they have such a fine seed that when the wind blows, these things are all, this Kogan grass all over the state. Now, the very north part of Florida, probably not, but where we are south it's gotten to be terrible. In Kogan's grass, if you burn it off, the cattle will eat it when it's about 6 inches high. But after that, it starts to form like a sawgrass. Cattle can't eat it. We also have a thing called a soda apple that came from South America. We didn't have that 20 years ago. If you don't keep up with getting rid of that soda apple, it'll take the place over. It'll take the fields over. Has such long thorns on it. Cattle can't eat it, won't eat it. We have wildlife there that wasn't there when I was a kid. We didn't have coyotes 20 years ago. We got them now. We don't have wolves, but we got coyotes. We've always had bobcats and gators and things like that we have to deal with. But, when you add all this other stuff in there, especially the getting rid of the Kogan's grass and the soda apples and all these other weeds, we have a weed called a butterweed. Now, it only comes in the spring and it dies out. But if a cow eats, I'm trying to think of the number, a certain amount of it, it'll kill her. So you try to keep that butterweed down so it doesn't seed out. Yep. It's a challenge. Yeah. It really is a challenge.
And so in your management strategies too, obviously you're trying to create the best, pasture land and grass eating opportunity for your cows too. How's that impacted the wildlife coming in too? Are they seeing this as, where they're keeping this down? Are you getting more of those animals coming in?
Yeah, we have our basic grass there is Bahia and a coastal, which is Coast Cross or some of these exotic coastals that they've come out with, star grass and all these other grasses. The deer basically love loom. They like a clover. Okay, I've got some fields. I've got 300 acres that's in clover, and clover only comes the 1st of March, and by the middle of May it's over with. But the deer love white Dutch clover. Okay, they love any clover. White Dutch is what we normally can grow there. But white Dutch clover needs a lot of water. I've got some irrigation fields that are called seepage irrigation. You fill the ditches up and they seep from one side to the other, which is 100-foot strips. So if you don't have a lot of water, you won't grow clover, But that will grow the deer. That will make the horns big. That will make put out a lot of milk. That's what that does for the cattle. It fattens them up and also puts a lot of milk for the calves. And, you can grow the calves out quicker, Yep. So it's a challenge. It really is. But we try to take care of the wildlife. We have turkey, the Osceola, white-tailed deer. We used to have a lot of quail, but the quail have disappeared. We don't have any quail anymore.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
You hear all these things about fire ants killing them. When I was a kid, we didn't have cowbirds, the egrets. We got them now, a lot of them. If a group of cattle egrets stumble onto a quail mama with the little chicks, I saw them do this. Throw the chicks up in the air and swallow them whole. Wipe out the whole brood at one time. So a combination, people say, oh, bobcat. We've always had bobcat. And coyotes. They've knocked the deer herd down because they eat the fawns. So it's a combination of things. the egrets, the fire ants, the coyotes, and all this other stuff. I very rarely hear a quail whistle anymore. It used to, we had a lot of quail.
Yep.
But it's not there anymore.
Yep. And Greg, jumping over to you too, what is it like, managing these ranches for improving grazing lands and whatnot, providing habitat? But do you have any issues with ungulates in that neck of the woods that come in and whatnot? I'm talking about elk.
I thought you were.
How do you deal with elk over there? And do you have a large herd that comes through and hunting opportunities, management, and trying to keep them off pastures or out of hay piles?
Okay, first of all, we live on the Salish Kootenai Indian Reservation, where we, as landowners, cannot hunt. Only tribal
you're
members.
non-tribal, right?
Yep, only tribal members can hunt. So when we moved there in 1990, our ranch had about a resident herd of 40 elk. So none of the haystacks were fenced. They were there and they were beautiful. Now we have in the valley, which is 40,000 some acres total, we have 400 head of elk. And so that becomes a problem. When they cross the road, and if people don't slow down and just let them jump the fence, they wipe out the fence. And most people just want to drive through them to see them. So fencing, and then an elk is 0.6 animal units. So you add that onto your existing cow herd, they're eating a lot of grass.
Yep.
And I know part of this sponsorship is Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, but on the reservation, they're not there. So now we have to fence all of our stackyards with 8-foot fence, and we do not get help from the Fish and Wildlife. Well, I guess we got mule deer, whitetail deer, and they're not a problem. I mean, there's a lot of them, but they can't eat as much, and they're good jumpers.
Yep.
They can jump the fences.
Yeah, it's amazing how much fence an elk can tear out pretty fast, too.
Yeah, they throw their head back and they just run.
And, you mentioned some of those weeds. You bring up leafy spurge. Have you been able to combat that in any way, whether it's through grazing, beetles, or application? Have you had any success in trying to curb that spread?
Far as grazing, no. But we've tried the beetles up in the high country where it's too dangerous to spray.
Yep.
And otherwise, we spray it with Wasey's spray plane with Tordon and 2,4-D. And boy, they've got so many new products out there. I just ask him to take care of it. So.
And Bob, for yourself there too, what's the species makeup there, and what opportunities are there to help species thrive, but also maybe some income sources too for the ranching operation too through wildlife?
Well, our kind of keystone species there, I guess, would be the white-tailed deer, which we're fortunate in that they graze on browse species and a lot of clovers and weeds. They don't really like the as the elk. They're not really grass eaters, and so they coexist pretty well with our cattle operation. And our other marquee species there is bobwhite quail, and we manage and have kind of integrate our management for bobwhite quail and with our cattle operation, and what our grazing management has done there is kind of provided better nesting cover for the birds. And as Mr. Overstreet was talking about, everything tries to eat a quail and a baby quail all the time. So it's just the more we can do to kind of provide them some good nesting cover, I think we help a lot there. And that's those two species are kind of what drives the recreational hunting market in our part of the world, plus the wild turkeys. And my father did the first hunting lease in 1973 down there, and it's kind of been part of our enterprise ever since. Some places we do it differently than other ranches, but it's definitely a good supplemental income for our operation to be able to kind of afford to do all the improvements that we need to make and the different investments that we have to do on fighting brush control and different things like that.
So, I mean, this is all open space too. Are these fences, or this is open space?
Most of it's open. We do have some brush country that it gets pretty thick. The brush, and we've got scrub brush, and we've got weesatch, which is turns into a tree. It's a very fast growing tree, and it's invasive.
Yeah.
And but they all the invasives seem to be really good at they all put out a lot of seed.
Yeah.
And the birds, carry the seed here, there, and everywhere. So it's a real challenge to manage.
So the three of you here, you come from different parts of the nation too, and that's why I love just learning more about. And again, we're in the same state, but we have a whole little different topography and issues that we face there too. But with successes and with trying new things, what has been your strategy to make improvements, partnerships, education, resources that you've worked with over the years to have healthy rangelands, to have healthy, good nutrition programs for your cattle, but also just, again, trying to keep your operations profitable and sustainable? What have been some of the, Mark, for yourself, have you worked with any of the agencies or local groups to?
Well, I was on the board of the Cattlemen Association there in Polk County, Florida for 17 years, and they have a guy named, or a person, which is a county agent. And anytime you needed maybe some questions answered, you call about agriculture, you call the county agent. And I got to know the county agent at the time, which was Sid Sumner, really good. And we had a really good relationship. And then I worked for the game department when I first got hurt, and as a teletype radar operator. So I knew a lot of the guys at the game department, which is for wildlife. And so if I had any problems, I could call them. I also was really close to the sheriff of Polk County, Grady Judd. Any problems, I call him. And I didn't mention something a while ago that probably the biggest threat we have on our ranch is the wild feral hogs. Mm-hmm. They destroy the fields.
Yep.
And if you watch where they root the fields, the grass has a hard time coming back. And they say it's from the saliva from the hog's mouth.
Is it like a bacteria?
The bacteria that the grass doesn't want to come back. So you got to go in there and dish that up, and try to bury that as deep as you can so the grass can come back.
Yep.
It's a problem. Feral hogs are a problem. I've seen them in bunches of 60, 70 in a bunch.
Yeah.
And if you don't think they can't root a field up in a probably 40 acres a night.
Yeah. We went down, we did a cattleman to cattleman segment down at Jim Strickland's place in Mayaca City.
They got hogs down there.
They got hogs.
Oh,
and we go in there and went to town, and we came back, and it looked like somebody was out there with their mule with an old plow. That's what it looked like to me. That's what it looked like. It looked like somebody just went.
Drive a pickup across this. You'll see how rough it is.
And you could just see it turned over there. And we got to run some hogs with dogs that one evening.
Yeah. We
I had some fun doing that.
Well, I call it putting the fear of God in them when you put the dogs on them. And the boy works for me. He's got some good dogs. But, you got to go out there and you got to trap them.
Yep.
And I hate to say this, but you got to get rid of them in any way you can. Probably trapping them is probably you can probably catch more hogs doing that than you can anything else. So,
could you put an estimate on just the economic damage they cause to rangeland in a year?
I've got a guy works for me that's with a tractor right now with a rotavator, and all he's going to do is go around the different fields and rotivate where those hogs have rooted.
Yeah.
He's been doing it for a solid week. Okay? A solid week. So this can get into thousands of dollars. Okay, you're trying to keep. We spent a lot of money improving those pastures. And my dad always used to say, if we own it, we're going to take care of it. Okay? Don't let the woods creep back out in the field. Keep the wood line where you originally put it. But we keep corridors for wildlife, for deer, for the turkey, quail if there's going to be any quail there. Occasionally a bear will come through. Mm-hmm. Occasionally a panther will come through. Now for the south, they have a lot of problems with panthers. We don't have the problem that they do down south. Now we do with bears because they come into the feeders. The guys got feeders up there for deer, and they wreck the feeders. So, as of last year, we weren't allowed to kill them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but it's a problem. And we all got our own problems. Yep. We really do. With the invasive plants, some wildlife that's out there that we don't really need there.
Yeah.
So we all try to do our job.
Yep. Bob, do you have hogs down there that impact you guys, or
we do? We have the hogs as well, and what we see is Mr. Overstreet was saying, when they root up the ground there, that's where those invasive species come back. You know, and it's always a while before the grass will come out there, and something bad's going to come out in those spots before the grass comes back. So it's a big problem. Yeah, and we do everything we can, trap them and hunt them, and there's actually a lot of people that do these aerial hunts out of helicopters, and they're pretty effective. And but they're a big problem over the whole state of Texas. I think so.
And Greg, do you have grizzly bears, wolves come through?
There are not grizzly bears on our side of the Flathead River. Yeah, but we have black bears.
Black bears. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And they're not a problem.
Yep. How about wolves? Or do you have they?
Oh yes, we have wolves, but the last 3 years they have not bothered much.
Yep.
So they're very elusive.
Yep.
So you really don't know that you've had wolves until you wean your calves and find out how many calves are missing.
Yeah.
We've found carcasses and had the government trappers come out, and they aerial hunt them, and so they're like us. They prefer beef to elk. So that's what why our elk herd has grown so much. I think is the wolves have pushed the elk out of the mountains down into the flatlands.
Yep.
And they just don't want to go back up there.
And what was that challenge like too when wolves first started coming up there? I've been around operations too where, if some of these cows see a cow dog, they freak out, and hormones go up and lose a lot of weight, especially on steers.
And your pregnancy
yes.
rate goes way down
so
because their cows are disturbed.
Yep. What was it like trying to balance that? And this your ranch is where you're at, and it was a long time before wolves could be managed too.
Right. Yeah. So it was hard because we couldn't shoot them. You could get the government trapper to come in, and he would trap them, and then put a collar on them and turn them back out. And it takes a wolf about 2 weeks to integrate back into the pack. And at first, with the tribe, if you had a pack of 8 wolves, they could come in and take 4 of them. Now if there's a pack of 8 wolves, they can come in and take them all. Mm-hmm. So in our small area or big area, whatever it is, I've documented 42 wolves that have been taken out since 1990.
Wow.
And they are not small.
Yeah.
Some of them are 130, 140 pounds. So
these aren't the original timber wolves that they
used,
that our
right.
grandpas dealt with. These are Canadian.
And they get close to buildings. My daughter's place is a mile from ours, and they killed a yearling heifer within sight of their house.
Oh, wow.
And you don't know it until morning.
Yep.
So.
They do pretty good job of cleaning stuff up,
Oh,
too.
they do. Yes, they do.
The similar question to what I asked Mark. I know you mentioned on your private ground you've worked with agencies and whatnot to make improvements. Who are some mentors or resources you've used to be successful?
Okay. Yep, the NRCS is great. Their equip programs, we use that a lot. Both Wacy and I and Brittany, we've used it, and gosh, the stuff that we can't afford now, we can't afford to do. So we've done pipelines, we've done fencing. The kids are trying some different stuff where they have to put out birdhouses, and I've noticed the elk like to knock down birdhouses. So I see birdhouses on the ground. But other than that, they've been our main help.
Yep.
Is the NRCS, and then of course call your county agent and get advice. Yep. So.
Bob, same question. What's it been like, working with different entities, whether it's agencies or extension or, again, mentors, too? I'm going to come back and ask about mentors, too, of both you guys. But
Sure.
What's that been like?
Well, we worked with the NRCS a lot as well, and one of my big mentors was a man that was a retired range management specialist for the NRCS, and he helped me a lot when we first put together our grazing systems, and he was a great mentor and a great resource to be able to talk to about what I needed to do as far as grazing and grazing time periods and deferment periods and things. So he was a fellow by the name of Clifford Carter. He's still around, but he was a national grazing land specialist, and he chose to retire in our part of the world, which we were fortunate to have him. The Grazing Lands Coalition group down in Texas, and they have a chapter in Victoria County in our part of the world, and they've been great to work with, and we've been very active with them as well. And Texas Parks and Wildlife Agency, which is our state game agency there, and they've helped us a lot. All of those organizations, I think if they're trying to create a good relationship with private landowners, it seems to work, and they can be very, very helpful. Another one that I'd have to mention is an organization called Quail Forever, that the funding a lot of the funding for brush control and things, they've helped us with on some cost share programs, which, honestly, would have been very, very difficult for us to do on our own, and get things done a little quicker with some of these cost share programs and the technical assistance that comes along with it, so.
Yeah, the Grazing Lands Coalition, that started in Montana, by the way, back in the day. And I serve on the board in Montana.
Yeah.
Bob Lee.
Yes.
Past ESAP national winner and a Montana winner, too. Very active on the national board. And, so there's a lot of resources out there, too. And I guess that might lead into my next point is what words of encouragement do you have to that next generation of producers, whether they're multi-generational on their operation or the first generation coming onto an operation? What words of encouragement do you have for them about not being afraid to go to a meeting or go to a workshop that they might feel a little uncomfortable about, to not be afraid to raise their hand or take the presenter aside and ask questions? What encouragement or words of advice do you have for that next generation of producer out there, whether they're, again, multi-generational or new into the business? Mark, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah. The next generation that will take over has to, as you say, not be afraid to raise their hand and ask questions and speak out. I was blessed with the nerve to be able to get up and talk to people and not be too much afraid of what I'm saying. You got to be very choicey of what you're saying. But, it's hard to install into a young person, I'm saying a young person of 30 years old, not to be afraid when you get up to speak. A lot of people just freeze and they can't, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. So I've been trying to get my daughters to be, I don't know what you call it, outspoken, but have a voice.
Yep.
Okay. That's the big thing for me is teach them not to be afraid.
Yep.
Know.
Well, that's one thing. We're in the cattle business. We can't be afraid either.
No, we're having a hard time where we live. Is the world is coming in on us. Okay, the population is coming in on us. Now we're okay north of there because we have about 250,000 acres that the state has bought to preserve, but there's not a cow on it. Not one cow on 250,000 acres. And so, but from the south, Lakeland, Kathleen, Dade City, all these towns are coming in on us. And I don't know how long I'm going to live, but I really am scared for the next generation and the next generation. What's going to happen to this place that we've had for a long time? Are they going to be forced to sell? I've never sold my developing rights. I still got it. So it's scary. It really is scary.
How do you instill in a generation that hasn't been born yet a love of the land or that duty that you have? Because that I think that's a challenge no matter where we live. There's always somebody that is willing to come in now, and we're seeing in Montana acreage that shouldn't be worth $500 going for $3,000 rangeland. But how do we instill the confidence that we need to be stewards of our lands to one or two generations that isn't around yet? How do we build on that foundation? I'm
going to let one of these other gentlemen.
Bob?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and that's a big challenge, And with the younger folks in my family, my children and some of my cousins' children that are involved, the best thing has been that I think they've been able to see for themselves. But the best thing is be involved in these organizations, your cattlemen organization, your grazing land organization, your wildlife organizations. Be involved with those organizations, and as Mr. Overstreet said, speak your mind and let them know, and be optimistic about the future. But it is a serious issue, I think, going forward. This loss of habitat and loss of grazing lands to the urban population. So it's something I think every rancher's thinking about and looking at, and he's got an obligation to kind of instill that in his those future generations. But yeah, it's kind of a scary thought about thinking about the generations that haven't been born yet and what's going to happen, because they're all a little different. So yep. So I was fortunate and that I was brought up on the ranch and worked there my whole life, and my father as well, and my grandfather, and all through the generations. So I think that part of that is these younger generations seeing that and seeing the obligation and the passion that different generations have for the property and taking care of the property, and just like this program here, yep. When you're able to showcase all these great stewards across the country, it kind of sinks in with some of these younger folks. So,
well, an operation has to be profitable too.
Right.
That's
right.
I mean, we're seeing prices right now that it's enjoyable being a cow-calf producer right now.
Yeah.
But, I think that's always the equation, too, is how we're going to keep paying for things.
Yes.
How do we expand? How do we stay in business? But, again, that also comes back to what we're talking about here today, environmental stewardship. That comes into the profitability equation as well. Greg, same thing. How do you instill that next generation pride in the operation and duty to not only cattle but land health?
Right. Yeah, well, we've got 3 grandchildren, and Brittany has 1 2-year-old, and Brittany's on the ranch full time, and that little girl is with her all day long in the four-wheeler or whatever. And if we saddle a horse, we've got to saddle a horse for her. And so they just learn from watching.
Yep.
You know, like calving time, the ranch kids learn about death right up front. So they understand what's going on, and they bottle feed the calves that we have, and gosh, they're all just involved. And hopefully they're watching what Lynn and I are doing and what Brittany and her Wacy are doing, and hopefully 2 or 3 of them will come back to the ranch. And like Mark was saying, I was going to ask, can you put a conservation easement on your property so that it can't ever be developed?
You can. You're going to get paid about 60 to 70% of the value of the land up front. But then also you've taken away the value of the land if you need to sell something, if that conservation easement is put on there, then you're done. It's all agricultural.
Right.
So I've kept it off because I didn't have the money to do that. So, but anyway, that's what we've done. So.
Have you guys done easements?
We've just done a small conservation easement on what's called Black Canyon, and it's a unique area, so it's only 250 acres, I think. But it'll just keep anybody from ever building a house on it.
Yeah, we did a show podcast last year on easements. It was with some of the state GLC leaders, and it was a very, very good conversation. You know, I truly have a mixed opinion on easements because, I mean, I couldn't tell you if they're good or bad. It's for a person's situation or whatever they're looking at, too. But for our friends listening, we actually filmed that one, too. That's a really good podcast that we did discussing easements there, too. But Bob, are easements big down there?
They are, and I was involved with the land trust. We formed an agricultural land trust in Texas a number of years ago, and I was involved with that. We have not put any easements on our property as of yet, but it is good to know that that's available, that's an option for the family at some point if they choose to do so. But and we have not, for the same reasons that Mr. Overstreet mentioned. We just kind of, we're a little bit afraid to what we would be saddling the future generations with, and not being able to liquidate something if they had to, you know.
Yeah.
And but they've in certain situations, I think they've proved to be very beneficial to a lot of families, and it just kind of depending on what your situation is. So.
And it was the land trust that we had on, land trust that we had on there from Texas and California. Very, very interesting conversation that we had. But I know it's been a long few days here for you. You get recognized at lunch. So that's a little bit in between there, but hopefully, got your nerves shaken out here having to sit down with me this morning before they make you go on stage. You got to give a speech on stage today.
We'll let Mark do
I'm
that.
joking. I don't think.
Let me tell you a quick story. When I first got picked to go on a jury, we all sit inside and we talked and said, we've got to elect a jury foreman. Uh-huh. This guy said, and he said, no, I don't think so. I said, why is that? He pointed and said, Mr. Overstreet's going to be our jury foreman. We don't have to worry about it. He can talk.
Yeah. I've only been called to jury duty once, and that was last year, right in the middle of haying. And I did change my clothes. I'd been bailing, and I went in just in time to go, and everyone's getting off because they had vacation booked and everything like that. And I stood up, sir, why can't you serve? I'm like, I'm in the middle of bailing right now. And I had to explain to the judge in Cascade County, Montana. And he goes, well, can't you? This is just going to take 3 days, no more than 4. And I'm like, I said, I got hay down right now. And that trial had been pushed back several months, too. They kept deferring it. And I even said, I'll take a picture. I didn't have to. He let me off, but
I didn't get off. I had to serve.
But gentlemen, I want to thank you and thank your families too for for making their way over here, and I'm looking forward to you all said that Baxter Communications, they came out and spent some days with you, so I'm looking forward to those video features to get a visual on your operations too, and good luck over the next year too. And obviously the winner, the national winner, will be announced at the 2026 Cattle Con down in Nashville, Tennessee.
That's in February, right?
Yep, I think February 3rd through the 6th.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
3rd, 4th, 5th. Okay, yeah, down in Music City, USA. So hopefully get time to.
Well, I have enjoyed this because I've got to meet some very interesting people that are cattle people like me. And I've learned a lot in the last couple days, so it's amazing. It really is worthwhile.
Yep.
And I've been honored, so.
Well, again, I tried to follow the notes here today, but I think we actually could have talked for 2 or 3 hours, and honestly, I should have just let you guys talk amongst yourself. It might have been better questions than what I had to say. But
thanks for taking it easy on us anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we try. I don't want to. That's the next podcast. I'll have a follow-up show that's a little more intense in front of everybody. We'll do it live. No, but. Again, thank you so much, and congratulations to you and your families, and those that came before you, and those that are going to come after you because of your hard work and the dedication to your land and your cattle as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Lane.
With that, friends, thanks for joining us. Again, a big shout-out to NRCS, Corteva Agri-Science, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for their support of the ESAP program. And again, we're going to continue to have our conversations with these individuals every time here on the podcast. We'll have a separate ESAP show with the other 3 regional 2025 winners as well. So make sure and stay tuned in for that. Click subscribe and follow along on the Cattleman's Call wherever you listen or watch podcasts. With that, I'm Wayne Northland. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to NCBA's Cattleman's Call podcast with Lane Nordland. For more information, visit ncba.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast today.